welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. You're watching Unbiased Magic Reviews, the most objective magic review channel here on YouTube. Today I'm taking a look at Tumbleweed by Brent Braun and Andy Glass. You can pick up this card trick for $15 from Penguin Magic. They'll send you the cards and the gaff that you need, and you'll get access to about 30 minutes of video instruction where you will learn this card routine, which is a packet trick. It is a variation of the Twisting the Aces plot. Now, as usual, I have no disclosures. Nobody sent this to me for free. I've been road testing this for over 2.5 weeks with my patients, so I'm going to give you guys my thoughts about this effect. I'm going to be trying to answer your questions. I'm going to do a demo of the effect because I perform it, and that's why you should trust what I'm telling you. I'm going to give you my rating and some final thoughts. So let's start out just first with my thoughts on this. So if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, then you've probably watched this video performance of mine, which is the traditional Twisting the Aces. It's actually Bill Goodwin's variation, and of course I've added some elements from Aaron Fisher, and that is the way that I prefer to perform Twisting the Aces. Extremely magical. But if you perform Twisting the Aces, then you know as well as I do that it is not a beginner effect. It takes some skill because there are some counts you have to do, and if you don't do them well, it's going to look terrible. So this effect, Tumbleweed, will appeal to those people that have not perfected their Twisting the Aces routine yet, because you can perform a version that looks probably as good as the original or close to it without all of the effort. Because if you can do an Elmsley count, then you'll be able to perform this effect, Tumbleweed. So I would say that this is like beginner level, and I think it does get good reactions. Of course, it does have some limitations because you are using a gaff. The cards cannot be examined, and in my own road testing, I found that I had to alter the handling to really compensate for that, because I had spectators that accused me of using extra cards. That's what I got when I first started doing it. And so you're going to see in my demo how I've altered the handling so that way I can put the cards in their hands in the beginning, so that way they really get a sense that there's only 4 cards. And I think that that's going to help you if you decide to pick this up, because that's what I found was the issue that I had. You're also going to see that I've changed the jokers as well, because I didn't like just the jokers that were black and white. I've changed them for the ones that are colored jokers, so that way, you know, my patients could see them easier. Now, besides those limitations that I've told you guys, besides the fact that you'd have to carry these gaffs with you, I don't think it's a bad routine, and I think it's great. It's hyper visual, and it's almost no work involved for what you're getting. I do think it's overpriced though. I think it would have been better if they had charged half the price for this and just not sent you the cards, because most of us have the gaff that they send you, and you could use any duplicate cards you want. I mean, you could use like 4 duplicate jacks or kings or aces. In fact, you could even use blank cards and just have a logo printed on it, like if you're performing this like at some function or something like that. So it really is up to you in that way. The other thing that I found, my other thought to tell you guys, was that I found that the instruction I thought was really limited. It's very, very short, and I thought they could have done a better job of teaching you better displays, because you're going to be using the Elmsley count over and over again. In fact, Brent Braun teaches you the Elmsley count. You know, my grandmother knows how to do the Elmsley count. Like, we don't need another instructional video on the Elmsley count. You know, the instructional video, I thought it was okay, but I just thought it was very much right to the point, and they don't really go over any other ideas. So it would have been nice if they'd given you some other ideas. I mean, you're going to learn the routine really easily, and probably the most difficult aspect of the routine is just to remember the choreography. But like from my experience, after you practice this, I don't know, a little bit, and you perform it, after a handful of performances, you won't ever forget the choreography. At least I don't think I could forget it. So let me show you what it looks like. Let's do a quick demo, and then I'm going to answer those questions that you guys have about this. Here's a quick demo of Tumbleweed, and you're going to notice that I've altered the handling just slightly. And that's because after performing this now for over 2 weeks with my patients, I found that I have to put the cards in their hand so that way they don't have this idea that you're using extra cards, because I've had a couple of people accuse me of using extra cards. And since this is not something that they can examine, I want to dispel that idea from their mind. So this is how I've done that. You're also going to notice that I've switched in the colored jokers, and that's because they're easier to see. The presentation I use with my patients is a mini mental test, and patients are used to doctors doing that. So I'll tell them, we're going to do a quick mini mental test as I take these out and say, look, I've got 4 cards, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll say, do you know which 4 these are? Usually they'll say either the aces or they'll say, I have no idea. That's the most common reactions I got. One person actually said jokers. In that case, I said, you must have ESP. That's exactly right. And then I'll say, if they don't know, I'll just say, actually, they're the jokers. And I'll say, hold out your hand for a second. And then I'll say, look, check this out. 2 and 2 make, as I put this in their hand, I let them say 4. It's just really important. So now they've got that in their head. Now I pick this up out of their hands and I say, now here comes the observation test or the mini mental test. Watch carefully. If I turn them face up, how many are face up? They'll say 4. And then I'll spread and say, no, actually just 3. And I'll say, you missed it, huh? You didn't see when the joker turned over, did you? And I'll say, look, we'll do it again. I'll go really slow. Watch carefully. If I turn the cards face up, how many are face up? They'll say 3. And then you'll say, no, look, just 2. And then I'll say, you know what? I know exactly what the problem is. The problem is you don't know where to look, because every time I turn over, another one turns over, you see? In fact, if I give it a little spin now, look, 1, 2, 3. Now they're all face down. And I'll say, okay, watch. Let's start over one more time. How many are face up, right? They're now usually laughing and they'll say none. And then I'll spread and say, look, no, actually 1. And that's really strong at this point because you didn't do anything. And then I'll say, you know what it is that every time I turn it over, you're not watching carefully, because look, 1 becomes 2. In fact, if I turn these face down and turn them over, 2 becomes 3. And of course, 3 can become 4. And that's just 4 jokers. And then I'll just put them away at that point, and that's it. We're done. You can see how easy it is, and that's how I've been doing it. All right, so you guys saw my demo, and that's exactly how I've been performing it, and I find that that gets the strongest reactions. So the questions that you have about this are as follows. How difficult is this to perform? As I mentioned, I think it's absolute beginner level. If you could do an Elmsley count, then you can perform this. Is the effect repeatable? It is repeatable because you end and it pretty much resets the way you end. You can go right into it again if you wanted to. So you can go from, one spectator to another one. Is it examinable? Not really. So you can't, it's not examinable, but you don't really have to worry about that because of the structure of the routine and because the spectators are seeing the cards on both sides so much that really, I haven't really had anyone that wants to look at them, but I've been accused of using extra cards. And so that's why, as you could see, how I've adapted the way that I performed it because of that. Next question you may have is, how are the angles? I never had any issues with the angles, even with multiple people watching. And I think as long as your hands are lower than their eye level, you don't have anything to worry about, which is good. Who would I recommend this for? I would recommend this to anyone who likes card magic, especially any beginners, because I think that once you learn the traditional twisting the aces with regular cards, then I don't think you'll really use this because you have to carry around the cards with you, the gaff and the duplicates. And so that could be annoying to some people. And for that reason, I think that once you've dominated the traditional twisting the aces, I don't think you'll probably use this. I don't expect to be using this anymore, but that being said, I don't think it's a bad effect, especially for beginners. And as I mentioned, the only sleight you really have to learn is an Elmsley count. So here's my rating for this effect, and you could see that I did give it a 5 out of 5 for creativity, and you could see where I gave it low scores, like compared to the standard twisting the aces effect. I don't think it's more magical because the standard twisting the aces effect, you're not doing half of the motion as you're doing here. You're not turning cards end for end, because I think that this trick could be a little bit confusing, whereas the traditional twisting the aces, it doesn't look like you've done anything but just spin the cards in your hand and they're turning over on their own. So that's the reason why I gave this 2 out of 5 for compared to the standard. And for the price, I gave it 2 out of 5 for what I mentioned to you guys. I think that they probably should have just charged half of what they're charging for this. Anyway, it gives us a final rating of 3.25 out of 5. It's still a favorable rating. And I think that if you're into card magic and maybe you're looking for something really easy, maybe you've always wanted to perform twisting the aces, but maybe you just haven't mastered how to do those different types of counts, then this is something that you might like because it's really easy to perform, as you guys have seen. Anyway, as usual, if you have any questions or comments, just leave them for me below. I really hope this has been helpful to you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next review.